about sex. According to the National Conference of State Legislators, 24 states and the District of Columbia require that sex education is taught in public schools. However, only 20 of those states require that if provided, sex or HIV education must be medically, factually, and technically correct, which can vary from state to state. So why is the number of states that require sex education so low? Today I'm going to talk about the importance of having sex education in public schools. After conducting a good amount of research, I have a pretty good understanding of why this is a topic that is so important to be discussed. It would be silly to say that sex isn't something that everybody experiences. Sex is a factor of life, and although it may be something taboo to talk about, it is an important topic to be knowledgeable on. So let's break it down. Let's talk about what schools are teaching, why it's so important to start sex education at such an early age, and why abstinence-only education is just not the route to take. Let's start with the basics. What are schools teaching in sex education classes? Like I said in my introduction, only 24 states require a sex education program. So what exactly is being taught in these classrooms? There are many different ways that sex ed can be taught, and some are clearly more helpful than others. According to Advocates for Youth, experts have identified critical characteristics of highly effective sex education. One of them is offering an age and culturally appropriate sexual health information in a safe learning environment for the participants. That means providing up-to-date and medically accurate information for students, including things about abstinence and pregnancy. Also, making clear markers in the education for things about HIV and preventing teen pregnancy are just as important. Now, the most common form of sex education is called comprehensive sex ed. According to Advocates for Youth, comprehensive sex education teaches that sexuality is a normal, natural, healthy part of life. And although the premise of that sounds pretty great, the main idea teaches that abstinence from sexual intercourse is the only way to prevent things like unintended pregnancy and sexually transmitted diseases, including HIV. And of course, there's a lot of truth in that statement, but that's expecting that every kid is going to stay abstinent until they're married. And if somebody decides not to, how are they supposed to know what to do in an event of any of those situations? So schools are teaching sex ed, but not in the most helpful or informative ways. So why should we start teaching sex ed so young? According to the NCSL, ages 15 to 24 are 25% of the sexually active population. So it's only fitting that we start sex education at a very young age. But not everybody agrees with that. Sex education has caused parents to become concerned for children and what it will do to them. In Omaha, Nebraska, just this January, parents erupted with news of an updating sex ed curriculum. Catherine Russell, a grandmother and a former worker of the Omaha School District, said that the proposed curriculum is raping children of their innocence. Parents are in outrage because the school district wanted to go away from a curriculum based on abstinence. And although parents feel so strongly, students feel a very opposite way. Riley Welsh, a sophomore at Omaha High, said, "I have a right to this information. Sexual health is more about just sex. It's about preparing and understanding and taking care of your body for a healthy future." Even fourth graders weighed in on this issue, saying they were already getting misinformed and non-factual information from things like their friends. We need to learn this information. This stuff is too embarrassing to ask our parents when we're older. Of course, being sexually active has its consequences, but if people 15 to 24 are already a quarter of the population being sexually active, we need to start teaching them how to have safe sex if they're going to make this decision. Sex ed is important to start teaching at a young age because kids start to get curious, and just like those fourth graders in Omaha, they're gonna find a place to learn the information if it's not from school. According to the CDC, more than 47% of high school students have had sex, and 15% of them have already had 4 partners in their lifetime. And although the teen birth rate has gone down over time, the United States is still the highest birth rate in the industrialized world. 4 in 1 girls will become pregnant before their 20th birthday. Think of 4 of your closest friends and imagine 1 of you being pregnant before you're 20. Kids are having sex, and that isn't anything new. So teaching them ways to prevent pregnancy and STIs are important. Teaching and preaching medically factual sex education seems simple, but it's not most common. Abstinence only is a very common taught curriculum of sex education. Research shows that abstinence-only education is dangerous, ineffective, and inaccurate. And being taught that abstinence is the only way to prevent things like pregnancy and STIs can be misleading. Abstinence-only education usually gives false information about essential information about having safe sex. So that means false information about effectiveness of contraceptives like birth control and condoms, and different risks about abortion. Even going to the extreme of using gross pictures of STIs to scare them into never having sex. They even go to far as using religious beliefs as scientific facts. So why are we teaching their kids the wrong information? Why wouldn't we just teach them what is correct? In Lacey Green's video, A is for Abstinence, she discusses what actually happens when kids are given the medically accurate information. Research shows that giving kids information that they need to make healthy, informative decisions about sexuality actually delays the age that they start having sex and lowers the pregnancy and STI rates, while kids taking the abstinence oath only are more likely to contract an STI or become pregnant. Abstinence-only education just doesn't work, and yet we're still using it. We know that the type of education that students are getting in school isn't always the best, and that adolescents are 25% of the population having sex already. And abstinence-only education is just not the route to take. We want our kids to be informed about having safe sex. As much as we don't want to think about it, sex is a factor of life, and getting a medically factual education is more important than striking into fear into them about never having sex. It's safe to say that although some people disagree with children getting raped of their innocence, it's important that if our kids are gonna have sex, that they know what they're doing and that it's safe.